Next up, we're looking at a film that came out last week. It's Book Club, The Next Chapter, and I'm sure Andy will get his 8 out of 10 all ready to use again for this one. The 4 old friends from the original Book Club film in 2018 are played by Jane Fonda, Candice Bergen, Mary Steenburgen, and Diane Keaton. And they go on a hen party trip to Italy to celebrate Vivian, played by Jane Fonda's upcoming marriage to Arthur, who's played by the old Miami Vice star Don Johnson. It's a road trip they will never forget. Here's a clip.
Hello, you've reached the home of the retired and gifted. Where are you?
I'm in a church. What? Are you serious? We're looking for a venue for the wedding.
You are going to get married in a church? I'm shocked you didn't burst into flames as you crossed the threshold.
Andy, I'm expecting another rant. I'm getting ready. I'm preparing. Over to you.
I'm just feeling desperately sad that for the second week running, we've had a film which, to quote my good friend Mark Kermode, is absolute rubbish. Love Again described itself as the romance comedy of the year. I didn't laugh once. I didn't laugh once through this. I mean, basically, if you don't know what to do with a set of established characters, as you've said before, Bob, send them abroad. Italy looks nice, scenery's nice, music's nice. Everything else about it is just terrible. It is so sickly sweet that I paid a second visit to my dentist in 2 weeks because he's doing well at me. He's hoping that more rubbish films will come out. I just didn't laugh. I thought it was appalling, and it's such a shame because there's some really great actresses in this. I mean, Mary Steenburgen is just great. I think Jane Fonda in her prime was one of the best actresses that we had now. In China Syndrome is my favourite film of hers. I think, and that's a brilliant film. I think that, obviously Candice Bergen, Diane Keaton, it just didn't work. It just fell completely flat. And it started with a couple of chuckles and went downhill from there. So I wasn't a fan of this at all. And I just sat there with my head in my hands, having ranted about Love Again, and thought, not again. Please, don't do this to me again. But they did.
You'll have to bring out your new film called Rant Again. That would be...
Chapter 2.
Chapter 2. Rant Again, Chapter 2. There is one thing to celebrate with this film, and that is that these 4 actresses have a total age now totaling 309 years. And given that the first film came out in 2018, it's a triumph that they're all still with us and still making films. So that's something to celebrate. I do tend to agree with you. I thought it started fairly positively with a lockdown Zoom call thing. And there were a few kind of decent chuckles in that opening kind of set of scenes. Then it kind of went off on its Italy holiday and came off the rails humour-wise for me. There were very, very few laughs through the rest of it. Mary Steenburgen, I thought, was the best of the actresses of the 4. I think she has a lovely kind of understated manner, and there's very little understated about this film, but she was very good. Candice Bergen, I think her character is very well written as the kind of ex-judge, and Candice Bergen actually plays that fairly well to the degree. The one I had real trouble with was Diane Keaton. I mean, she made Annie Hall back in 1970-something with Woody Allen, and she's been Annie Hall ever since in a lot of her roles. And here, every single scene she was in, she's often just in the background in some scenes, but she's gurning away, pulling faces, overacting like a bad one. And I just found it horribly distracting what she was doing. Over on the male side of the camp, there's Andy Garcia, again, not doing his Ruby Fernando bit, although there is a scene in the Italian restaurant where I thought that was going to happen. There is effectively a Ruby Fernando scene there, but not with Andy Garcia, I should add. And it was also great to see Craig T. Nelson on the screen again. He was Mr. Incredible's voice, of course, and also the dad in Poltergeist, which is one of my favourite of the Spielberg films.
It's a Spielberg film.
Spielberg. Toby Hooper, Spielberg. So it was great to see him on the screen again. I must apologise to the Nelson family that I have been saying for the last few days that poor old Craig has died and this was his last screen performance. I don't know how I got that in my head or who I was thinking of that I'd read had died, but it certainly wasn't Craig T. Nelson, because he's safely, presume, at home, bouncing grandchildren on his knee. So my apologies to the Nelson family. The other character in there, who is also well over the top, is Giancarlo Giannini, who plays the police captain guy. And I was racking my brains to know where I'd seen him from. And of course, he was Rennie Mathis in the Bond films Casino Royale and Quantum of Solace. So that's where he came from. But as I said, he was dramatically overacting his part as well, and being very loud and Italian. He's actually a very prolific actor. I looked him up on IMDb. He's made 177 films so far and counting. He's got another 4 or 5 in the works, mostly Italian language ones, but he clearly keeps himself very busy. But does he have a family to go home to? Who knows? As you said, Andy, the Italian countryside is wonderful. I put in my review that this film was no doubt sponsored by the Italian Tourist Board and Lufthansa, who have the most crass product placement imaginable in this film. It really is shockingly bad. But the Italian countryside is wonderfully photographed by cinematographer Andrew Dunn, who also did Downton Abbey before. And it really looks beautiful. Rome, the Forum. I don't know if you've ever been to Rome, but going to the Forum is just one of the most amazing places I think in the world.
It's staggering. Yeah.
Utterly staggering. And I think that was really nicely captured on film. Venice, Tuscany countryside, bits of Florence via helicopter. And so that was beautifully done. But my, oh my, the script for this was dire. It was written by the guys who did the original book club. Hey, Scott, you're back. Welcome back after your internet failure. The script is by Bill Holderman and Erin Sims, who did the original one. And it's so lame and wooden. The worst bits, I think, are where these 4 women are yakking onto each other in particular situations, like they're American tourists at a bus stop, yabbering on inanely about things. And I'd like to think it was all improvised, but I think it was all scripted, and it would have been better just to let them improvise the scenes.
I wonder if this is a trend for this year, Bob, because we've already had Jane Fonda in 80 for Brady, which was about a group of middle-aged to elderly women going on a road trip. And in a few weeks' time, we got the Take That musical, Greatest Days, which, looking from the trailer, is about a group of middle-aged women going on a road trip, this time to Spain. So maybe this is the theme of the year.
The theme of the year. Let's hope not.
I do hope not. But
let's hope not. The script kind of grinds to a halt about 30 minutes from the end. I have the misfortune, which for reasons we won't go into, that I've seen the last 30 minutes of this film twice. And that final 30 minutes is just awful. It is vomit-inducing, sickly sweet. It basically trying to ape the last scenes of 4 Weddings and a Funeral. And man, it is dire. There is, apart from a grumpy violinist, who I don't think was even supposed to be grumpy or playing that part, it is barely watchable, that last 30 minutes of the film for me. I dare barely ask you, Andy, what your score out of 10 for this one is.
I was so generous and so exceptionally kind to this movie, Bob. I gave it a 1.
A 1. So it's as bad as Love Again?
Yeah, there's a hair's width in it. Seriously.
Okay.
I mean, Love Again, I didn't even bother to score because it's just, excuse me. But no, 1.
Scott's gone again. I've been a little more generous in this. I've given this a 4 out of 10 for one reason, and that is because, as I say, I've been into 2 cinema screens to see this film, and each time the screen was pretty well full. There were a number of men in the audience, but mostly they were groups of women who'd gone to see it, multi-generational groups of women. So daughters taking their mothers, sometimes taking their grandmothers along to see it. And even though there was very little to laugh at in this film, they were having a whale of a time, many of these women. And the illustrious Mrs. Movie Man, who was sat next to me the second time, was very perplexed as to what, because she has the same view of this film as I do. And she was very surprised that this was getting this kind of reaction from this crowd. She said, "Am I a real woman?" She said at one point.
Am I thoughts on that, Emma?
Am I
I can
supposed?
certainly see why it appeals to the majority of women more than it might appeal to you, lovely gentlemen, I'm afraid.
Yes. Well, I can see it, but I can kind of interpret. Right, but I mean, my wife came up with the view that maybe the reason that is that there are so few of these films that come out into cinemas that a group of women can kind of go along to and sit and enjoy, that they disappeared into this cinema with the intention of enjoying this film, and they were going to enjoy it regardless of the fact there weren't any jokes in it, and regardless of the fact it was sickly sweet and vomit inducing. They were going to enjoy it, and so they did. And I guess if there's a message out there for the movie makers of the world, it's that there is a market for this type of film. Harold Fry showed that there was a market for older people going to watch a good drama, packing out cinemas in the afternoons last week, a couple of weeks ago. And this is much the same. The cinemas were getting quite a lot of business through them. But please just make a better film, right? Do that, but make the film better.
Did you enjoy the first one? Or did you feel the same way about that?
I felt much the same about the first one, I'm afraid. Yes.
Yeah.
Again, because the script. Did you enjoy the first one? Do you remember the first one?
I very much enjoyed the first one.
Oh, right. And you're going to see it this weekend, aren't you, Eva?
Yes, I am.
You can put us menfolk in our place next time, right? You say, no, you don't know what you're talking about. Yeah. Very good. Okay. Right. So that's a 1 from Andy and a 4 from me and a TBC from Emma. So with a 1 out of 10 and a 4 out of 10, that gives us a Flickering Dreams average of 2.5 out of 10 for Book Club, the next chapter, making it a definite.